I'm here at Fraunces Tavern in Lower Manhattan. In addition to being a restaurant that focuses mainly on craft beers and whiskeys, the top few floors are a museum about New York specifically, its role in the Revolution, and this tavern's role. It was where George Washington said goodbye to his troops. That's what it's most known for. But there's plenty of other elements involved as well. I am here questioning what the museum's role wants to be with the imposition of the 1776 Commission. The 1776 Commission is primarily interested in promoting patriotic history. Patriotic history is my problem with it anyway. It's more about value judgments than analysis. More getting people to feel greatness about patriotic symbols. And you might wonder, well, what's wrong with that? Because it's not sustainable. Never mind the fact, do mind the fact that it kind of cuts out non-white voices or, renders them into second-class status. It makes the American Revolution a white event. But if you base national history primarily around feelings and not facts, it is in the human spirit to ask questions, to analyze. Why are we here? Why should we think this? And instead of actively trying to shut that down, you need to feel this way about this place, this event. You need to feel this way about where you live, because it's the greatest place to ever exist, ever in human history. Like, this is all value judgment. It's all value judgment. And that gets in the way of what humans are really good at. Even if America is to have an ideal at its best, it does that too, because that's what it did to post-1688 Britain, to question, to analyze. That's what makes a free society. It's not top-down imposition of dogma, especially not from the executive. It's promoting, questioning at all levels to make a better country, better people, and a better world. An exhibit that the museum has been pushing, which is very interesting, which acts as a direct counter to patriotic education, is its focus on the Birch trials, which, if I remember correctly, were about when the British were evacuating New York. Many escaped enslaved people wanted to join them, and the Birch trials was the process of their analysis. But will the Birch trials survive the 1776 Commission and Trump's executive orders? That's what I want to find out. From speaking to staff here, my impression is they're taking, a quiet opposition approach. That even having information about the Birch trials, showing the British Army willing to help black loyalists, is opposition enough that any loud opposition to the executive orders is actually counterproductive, because that will get negative eyes on this exhibit. From what I heard, the response to this exhibit has been overwhelmingly positive, that it was packed. Everyone wanted to see it when it opened a year and a half ago. Would it benefit to draw the ire of the 1776 Commission? They might want to close this down. What is better opposition? Being loud and open, or quiet and sneaky, and thereby being more effective in the long run because your opposition survives? My impression of Fraunces Tavern is that it is much more interested in display of artifacts than any particular interpretation of those artifacts. The question is, does that fall in line of or afoul of the executive orders? Does it fall in line with the 1776 Commission? If you lead your viewers, your customers, visitors, to draw their own conclusions, Is that indoctrination? Is it resistance? It can kind of fall under both. And maybe the exact words of those EOs are designed to, like, look, they don't like government doing things anyway. They said, oh, let's get rid of the Department of Education. Now they want to use it, which is true. Because after all, you think about prohibition. They said, oh, we have to move the government against things, but they underfunded the guys who were supposed to enforce that anyway. This whole top-down patriotic education stuff, it might be the seeds of its own destruction. And that's been my impression the whole time. If you're trying to be top-down, impose a dogma, people are just going to resist that because they don't like being dogmaed on. They don't like being imposed on. Regardless, it seems to sow the seeds of its own destruction. But maybe I'm being too cautious. So here's that cloaked crusader exhibit, all about George Washington and the Revolution in comics. It's closing down now. They're going to be putting something new in there. I actually have pictures from when this opened and from a later time I came here. Yes, it's very white, but I'll be honest, what mainly interested me was how it depicted the British Army. That British troops were usually like grenadiers with brass caps, brass mitre caps. And I was like, why was that implemented? Why was that the focus? And because we're talking about the 50s to the 70s here, and we're still dealing with, the British are allies, so you make them more like Germans. I keep coming back to the idea of greatness, which is just such a terrible adjective to use, especially in any sort of legal context. What even is greatness? Is whimsy greatness? Or does whimsy defy greatness? Is showing crimes greatness? Is showing wrongness greatness? Or is it a defiance of greatness? It's not useful. It's a rubber law. And the question is, will the rubber law be used as a hammer, or just, oh, look, I'm doing a symbolic thing, I don't really care? It could go either way, which is so terrifying. I've attended a ton of lectures here over the years, here from guys like Benjamin Karp and even Kenneth C. Davis. Like, a lot of people, my introduction to serious history was looking at Kenneth C. Davis's work, that don't know much about history series. I don't know if that's popular now, but I think his website is still up. How does Kenneth C. Davis fit into this story? How do here it is, the Sons of the Revolution of the State of New York fit into this story? Sons, daughters, American Revolution, they got this reputation, which I think is well-deserved, of being just conservative for their own sake, just snobbery for their own sake, white for their own sake. But maybe, what are you going to do? Look, I've been to 2 SRNY events, and they're mainly about, oh, let's dress up all fancy, not really about serious historical scholarship. But you've got the Revolutionary War roundtables, which are about scholarship, which are about highlighting voices. That's where I first heard about Ona Judge Never Caught. So are we going to make the perfect the enemy of the good here? Is that the right approach, or is more of a quieter, everyone's going to be pushing this big patriotic stuff? And maybe the real opposition of that is just the point saying, yeah, look, we know that it's all nonsense. Let's get the real history, and if you're interested, we're there for you. Maybe I'm just too soft or sentimental here, but there's this one flag room. That is, the patriotic feeling is contained rather than actively suppressed. Is that a good compromise? I mean, people like looking at flags. You can unite people with flags because anyone can like a flag, right? It's like, oh, look at those shapes and colors and the meanings behind those shapes and colors. Like, consider, everything else I've shown you could have been draped with all this star-spangled nonsense, but it's not. It's hardline empiricist. And I can't help but think that that's a better source of opposition than this loud, burn it all down isn't the right approach. Obviously, that's not what you're going for. But some kind of, we know this is silly, we know this is boring. How cozy. I don't think Fraunces Tavern is cozy. It's not like Mount Vernon, because it's like, what do they have to hide? You know, they're willing to show a lot of the nasty bits, and that's important. Is having some flags just to appease the rabid red baiting guys worth saying, okay, and here's what really happened. You'll look at the lives of, people of color, enslaved people, free people of color, people just running away, and giving the nasty folks, the 1776 Commission, just enough to get them focused on the flags and the, patriotic feel-good stuff. So the really important stuff they don't find.
Yorktown in October of 1781. The British Army prepared to evacuate New York. British General Guy Carleton and General George Washington met in May 1783, catered by Samuel Fraunces, to negotiate how the British evacuation would occur. One topic was whether the British could evacuate thousands of black loyalists who had formerly been enslaved. People who crossed British lines, some serving in the British Army, received what came to be known as birch certificates, ensuring safe passage out of New York. Carleton and Washington agreed that a joint British-American commission should be created to settle all disputes over whether particular people could leave. British General Birch was in charge of these trials. The order convening the commission states it would assemble at Fraunces Tavern. The Birch trials at Fraunces Tavern were part of the largest emancipation of black people prior to the Civil War. All things considered, it is reasonable to conclude that the names for inclusion in the Book of Negroes, which chronicled those who were cleared to leave with the British Army, were reviewed and compiled during the commissioner's sessions at Fraunces Tavern.
My impressions of Fraunces Tavern is that they're going to be like most blue state responses of a tightrope walk. They're going to present as much honest history as they can without running afoul of any official opposition. It's sneaky rather than aggressive. We can discuss which is more effective.